There are 5.6 billion Google searches a day. That roughly translates to 63,000 queries every second on average, and the numbers are rising. But how high is the actual number of websites that receives visitors and traffic from Google? What do you think? You'd be surprised. Not even 10% according to a study of Ahrefs, with a sample size of over 1 billion pages. So, how to make sure that your website or your application is in the 9.37%, or ideally in the top 1? You'll see that and learn that in my talk SEO in a Vue.js world. A few words about me before we get started. I'm Alex, a nuxt.js core maintainer, and I'm on Twitter, as most of you are probably as well. So if you have any questions, even after live Q&A, just shoot them over there. I also have a blog and a website, and I write every now and then about technical topics, mostly about Vue and Nuxt. And job-wise, I'm a web development consultant on my own self-funded company development. So what is SEO? Maybe some of you have to do SEO tasks as part of your day job, and maybe some of you have just heard that acronym. Well, SEO is search engine optimization. And first of all, it's not rocket science, and it's also not witchcraft. Even though it's called search engine optimization, the users are very important, not only search engines, so users first. Also, SEO is more a marathon than a sprint, so you need continuous improvements and work continuously on your site and the SEO aspects. Also, it's not very hard to get started, but it's hard to learn and to master all these nitty-gritty details. But if you have a good solid base, you're already better than many competitors, of course, depending on the industry, but you're better than doing nothing, for sure. Also, like web development, it's changing frequently, unfortunately, but right. So SEO is important, but mostly for pages search engines can actually crawl or access, like marketing pages, company and business sites, maybe your own portfolio, or as I said, the cool marketing page of your company's application, but of course also forums or blogs and articles. But for everything behind authentication, SEO is not important at all because search engines can't access that. So if you have a cool web app with authentication in front, you don't have to optimize for SEO on that part of the application. On the market page or landing page of the application, you should. And another thing is short-lived content, because SEO is a long game. If you have short-lived content, it's usually not worth the time optimizing for, but that really depends on case by case. And there are 3 pillars of SEO. So let's go through all 3 of them. First of all, we have on-page. So everything that is on the page, starting with content. Content is king. It's an old saying, but it's true. Even if it's old, it's the case. If you have awesome content, then people that are interested in the content will read it. And you have a solid base to have an awesome page. And obviously UX. So SEO is very important, but if you have bad UX, then there are just more people coming on the page and then just dropping off because they don't like how you, I don't know, maybe they can't see the structure of your page, they can't navigate, the form is clunky, whatever they want to do, they can't do it, something like that. So important is that user experience is really good, but because otherwise people would just drop off. And also keywords, meta tags. So keywords, keyword research is also important there. What are people actually looking for? What are they searching? Which words are that? And we should bring them on the pages. And also with which intent. Are they looking for that because they want to buy something, because they want to inform themselves, something in between? This is also important. And meta tags, we'll talk about it in a bit. And then off page, the second pillar. So that's mostly related to link building. So how to get other sites to link to your sites. Citations, similar to link building, but without linking, mostly just naming writing down the brand or product. social media, and authority in general. Last but not least, the technical aspects. Things like page speed, security, broken links, and sitemap are important there. So we will focus on two of them, on-page and technical. So why not off-page? Well, first of all, time. I mean, I could probably give a talk about each of these three pillars with 30 plus minutes, but also because it's easier to start for you with on-page and technical, and then add off-page factors later. Okay, so SEO and Vue.js. Well, as you know, Vue.js single-page applications generate HTML through JavaScript, right? But well, what happens when there wouldn't be JavaScript, or when it would fail or break or wouldn't be disabled? This would happen. A blank page, or if you're lucky and you've implemented it, a loading spinner or an error state or something like that. But still nothing on there to crawl and to see for the user. So no content. And so what's with the search engines? Can they understand JavaScript? Is JavaScript a problem for search engines? The answer is yes for some, but luckily not for the big ones. So Google and Bing, for example, they don't have any issue. They can render JavaScript, they can understand it, all good. So, but if you, for example, target other target groups, other countries, you should consider that the search engine that's popular there might not be able to understand JavaScript. So let's focus on Google for now, because that's probably the engine that most people of you would have to optimize for. And we can now answer the question, can Google fetch and index Vue.js single-page applications? And the answer is yes. But I would say yes, but, because there are a couple of things we have to consider. First of all, if you would share then a link of your site, for example, of your cool product in the shop, with your friends on WhatsApp or a Telegram or Discord or Twitter, then you won't see any image. You would mostly see the link and that's it. And maybe the title if you're lucky. But as there are no meta tags present, there is no preview when sharing links, at least not when using just SPAs. Also, because JavaScript is really fragile, mistakes in JavaScript could lead to indexing blank pages. With HTML browsers are way more forgiving. When HTML, just skip it. That's not the case with JavaScript. Another point is that delayed content from third-party APIs might not be indexed at all. So that could mean the content is not fully there when Google indexes the page. And one key point, well, indexing doesn't mean that Google says the page is awesome or fast or will rank good at all. It's just, okay, we added the page. And there are a couple of minor things, for example, that the fragment router mode is bad for SEO. That's why you can switch to history. And there's a bit of extra work for multi-page applications. But anyway, I think the key point with indexing does not equal good ranking is clear here. So we can say TLDR, yes, but using just SPA is, in my opinion, not enough. That's it. But well, what else if not SPA? What if you're in a competitive area and you want to improve? Because then it can make or break ranking. Well, the answer is server-side rendering. And there are two kinds of server-side rendering. First one, on the fly. And for example, frameworks like nuxt.js got our back here and provide a Node.js server that then responds with HTML and JavaScript to load and then act like a single-page application. And the second one, that's a bit disguised, is server-side rendering at build time, also known as static site generation or Jamstack. And again, Nuxt.js got a back, but also we have cool static site generators like VuePress or Gridson. Of course, you can also run your own SSR setup if you want to, but why would you reinvent the wheel, right? And it's a bit of work. Okay, but before we start with SEO, 2 or 3 advices. So the first one you could do right now, if you want to pause the talk or do it after the talk, no problem at all, is to set up your page in the Google Search Console. That's mostly because Google Search Console gives you lots of data. For example, when does Google display your site for which search queries, for which keywords, and how many people click on that search then. Or also info about penalty. And you can do lots of things there too. So just attach the screenshot here so you can see, for example, the performance report. The problem is it takes a bit of time. So do that right now, and then I don't know, 2 to 3 days, you have a couple of data, and then you can also see the comparison after you implemented SEO improvements. And the second one is to add an analysis tool like Matomo or Google Analytics, because you want to know your users and you want to understand them. So if there are some problems on the site, then usually users will bounce off there. So leave the site or fully leave the whole, the whole website, or just go back. And you want to see something like that. Also, of course, you want to know how many people are on the sites and so on and so on. On the other hand, you have the GDPR and compliance there. But on all, analytics are an important part here. And that's just a bonus, adding a paid tool to a tool set like Moz, SEMrush, or Ahrefs. Mostly because you can see your own data on the Google Search Console, but not the one from the competition. So what you want to do, if you want to analyze the competition, understand why they rank so good, then you can use one of these tools or another one. They also have a couple of free tools in there, so giving them a spin might be worth it. But as I said, it's totally okay to not use it. That's mostly for analyzing competition. Okay, so let's improve our SEO game. We will use Nuxt for the most of the code examples, mostly because it can be used for both server-side rendering dynamically and Jamstack, and it comes with vue-meta out of the box. So SEO is, I would say, first-class citizen in Nuxt. And vue-meta is awesome. It will make our SEO efforts really enjoyable. And the examples, well, they can also be easily applied to other frameworks, even to custom SLR setups, so it won't be a big problem. And the examples will become more and more specific then. Last but not least, users first in all these examples. So what is vue-meta? Well, vue-meta is a Vue library to manage HTML metadata. Nice. So in plain Vue, you would have a new key called meta info, and you can give them an object, and in there you have your title, for example, but also meta tags. And I'll show a few examples in a bit. In Nuxt, it looks the same, but it's called head, and it can be now a function or an object. Nice. So let's get it on. We have always for each example SEO category and the effort. 1 diamond is low, so low hanging fruit, easy peasy, and 5 or 6 or whatever is quite high, so it might take a bit. Let's get started. Basic security. Ooh. You might think now, why is this related to SEO? Well, first of all, we talk about HTTPS. That's what I mean with basic security, at least one of 3 points. Why is this important? It's a ranking factor, and if people see not secure about health, finance, money, whatever related page, they'll be gone very quickly. Even with other sites, they will think twice if they really want to stay on a page if there's a not secure label in the address bar. Plus, HTTPS is a ranking factor, so not having HTTPS is a disadvantage for your site. Well, so certs are free. It's not hard to set up. Give it a go. And other 2 things are like setting security headers, or also keeping your CMS and stuff accounts in good shape, password-wise, secure stuff, and so on. That's not related to ranking at all, but it's good practice. And what you want to do is you want to convey trust to your visitors. So yeah, really do that if you don't do that already. If yes, that's good. The next one is mobile friendliness, also technical SEO, and the effort really depends. But it's a must-have. We have so many mobile devices that give lots of traffic, and also it is a ranking factor, surprise. But the effort depends on the current state. So if you have a mobile-friendly site, then it's good to go. If not, you should work on that. And there is also a test from Google that tells you if that site is mobile-friendly or not. Talking about Google initiatives, there's a quite new one called Core Web Vitals, which is pretty cool. There are 3 essential metrics for a healthy site coming from Google. The first input delay, largest contentful paint, and cumulative layout shift. And what they want to try is they try to quantify user experience, more or less, which is pretty nice because that's finally a way to influence ranking in that way. It will be a ranking factor in 2021. That's already announced. So optimizing for these these values, these free values, doesn't only mean, oh, we have cool values and we'll rank super good next year. It also means a better user experience. So that's quite important here. Again, effort depends on the current state. But we have a Nuxt module to, for example, report the core web vitals of your site of your users. And there are also a couple of other implementations, so that might be also worth checking out. Next one is text compression. Mostly underrated topic, but it's a must-have again. gzip, for those of you who know that, is a compression algorithm almost everywhere. Quite standard, and mostly comes by default. But there's a new one called Broadly, copied from Google, released 2015, and it's faster and also leads to smaller files. So why not using it? You could think browser support, but no, every modern browser, so everything except IE, is supporting it. And you could also use gzip as fallback. So Broadly might be a good idea. It improves page speed, and that means good UX, and also page speed is a ranking factor. So it indirectly also influences ranking. And if you don't know if your site already supports Broadly, you can check it, for example, on broadly.pro. So Nuxt examples gzip out of the box if you use dynamic SSR. If you use static site generation, then it depends on the hosting platform. Broadly can be enabled as well, but as I just mentioned, usually you want to set the text compression on your web server. So if you have an Apache or Nginx or something like that running there, or a platform provider like Netlify. On Cloudflare, if you use Cloudflare, it's just a toggle, and then you're good to go. Another good idea would be to pre-generate compressed assets, because those compression algorithms have different levels. So some take more time and you get smaller files. And if you have a CDN, most modern CDNs do it automatically, then pushing up their pre-compressed files is the way to go. So they don't have to compress anything on the file. Same goes for your server. And the next topic, broken links and redirects. So what you don't want to do is link to broken pages. It's so frustrating. Yeah, check that cool source or check that thing here. They click there and it's 404, or even worse, redirect to a homepage. So that's the thing, and you should really check that. How? Well, I'll go to that in a bit. But it's also vice versa. You should check that nobody is linking to your page and it will result in a broken link. So 404 or 410 or redirect to homepage. No. So what you want to do then is setting up redirects for these broken links. You may wonder, why should someone link to a page that is now broken? The reason is URL restructuring. If you restructure URL, always set up redirects for the old URLs to the new ones. Otherwise, you are losing rankings. That's it. Also, please avoid redirect chains. So if you switch your URL structure every now and then, or with the time, a couple of times, new CMS, new stack, and so on, then it's sometimes like A redirects to B, redirects to C, and you don't want to do that because that takes time. And you want to redirect A to C, and you're good to go. Again, here, effort depends a bit on the size and content size, site and content size. There are also two tool recommendations. One is the Screaming Frog crawler. You can just click on the logo in the slides and you go there, just look for Screaming Frog. That's a crawler with a good free tier that gets all your site. I think up to 200 is free, could be another number. And you can analyze them there. And the Ahrefs backlink checker, so you can check which sites are linking back to your site and on which subpage they're linking. So which blog post, product, and so on. All right. Redirects are possible usually again through a web server, platform provider, but they could be also realized through the nuxt.js redirect module if you don't have access to the former. So for example, I have a blog in Netlify and I've changed the redirects there simply through an _redirects file. And there I have like old URL, new URL, and the status code, which always should be 301. And I made URL a bit cleaner. Next topic is canonical links. So my recommendation is set a canonical link for every page. You can also do it automatically, but do it. It represents the preferred link or the preferred version of the page. And it's especially important, for example, e-commerce, when you have lots of pages with similar or duplicate content, because then you want to link on one page for that content. And a good example is if you have like a shoes page and you have the Nike Air Max there, and then you have a special running right now, and there you also have the almost same content for Nike Air Max. Then you would set the canonical URL from both sides to the say everlasting URL, so the shoes one. So Google doesn't have to figure out, oh, that's duplicate content, that they know, okay, that's all good. And worst case would be they would show both pages, but that's called keyword cannibalization. And then they might both rank worse than if they would just be one. It's also good for trading / enforcement. So let's just take a look at lots of URL variants. And the purple magenta-ish, they should be covered by your web server platform provider, like HTTP, HTTPS, or with www or without. But everything else, it could be part of your canonical URL, like stripping fragments, #AB, stripping query parameters on which you really should not rely. So that's something you should set there. So how to implement in the Nuxt layout? I did this a couple of times, and it's not too difficult. We have, again, our head function from vue-meta, and now we get the base URL, for example, from the environment variables, runtime config, and so on. Now we get the path of the current route, thanks to view router, and we don't get the full path, we just get the path. So then I say, okay, and does the path end with a slash or not? If so, so if it ends with a slash, we're all good. If not, append that slash, and then I set the canonical link. Why do I do that? Because I like the trailing slash at the end, and it's a good way to decide either everything with a slash or not. If the redirect happens before, that really depends on how you host your page, then you could also omit that line 9 fully and just take the path as is. But I go that way because it's on that project, both ways are accessible, so with slash and without, but you could also redirect before. Okay, sitemap. A sitemap is really cool because it's an easy way for Google to get all the pages they should index, especially if they're not very well connected. So my suggestion, create a sitemap for all relevant URLs. Good thing is it can be done automatically, so it's not a high effort. And if you have lots of URLs, then please split them up into many sitemaps, so many smaller ones. You can also create sitemaps for images and videos, which is pretty good if you have a media-heavy site and have to rely on video and image search too. So how do you do that in Nuxt? Well, we have a sitemap module for generating URLs. It catches all static URLs, and dynamic ones can be provided, for example, through the API or file system or through the crawler. And that looks this way here. So we provide a host name similar to base URL. I just hard-coded here for the sake of testing. Then we can exclude some sites if we don't want to add them. And then we can provide the routes here. And we can also say for that URL, set the change frequency, priority, and last modified date. I usually don't do that because it doesn't really make a difference. And then a sitemap will be generated. I shortened that a bit here, so we have just one URL, and we have that location tag with the URL. Nice. Then we have last modified, which might be considered by Google depending on several factors that nobody knows. And then we have the priority, which is totally obsolete, and you don't need to set that because Google says there people doing so many weird things there, and they say, oh, everything is high priority, so you can omit that. Next topic is optimizing your assets, and I don't want to talk a lot about it because there's so many good talks and blog posts about this. So optimize responsive images would be nice, picture with image fallback, mind format and size, remove metadata, compress, also compress lossy, and lazily loading, right? A lazy loading. Also JavaScript improvement, please, through code splitting, lazy loading, tree shaking. Code splitting is automatically done in Nuxt. Regarding tree shaking, you should ensure that all your dependencies are tree shaking, or at least the large ones, right? So no moment, no Lodash, Lodash ES, and date functions or Luxon or something like that. But again, lots of good talks. I recommend to go there for in-depth knowledge. And please all cache all static assets. Use hashing, fingerprinting, mostly what's also happening during Webpack, and also auto-configure in Nuxt. And one interesting part here is you should use descriptive file names for images. You can also use both together. So descriptive name, delimiter, some hash, because Google can tag info from there. All right, page structure, effort, it depends. So it's important to create a logical and hierarchical structure. So that means everything should be roughly reachable in 3 clicks. Not too deep nesting, because then also crawling is a bit tricky, but also users won't find your content if they need to click more than 3 clicks deep. Right, another thing is category pages. I've seen it very often, and I'm guilty of that myself. Make them worth indexing. Don't just write category name and then list all the things. Write the text. Why is that category there? Something about the category. So it's worth for Google to index these pages. And also internal linking, very important. If you somehow can cross-reference on products, on posts, something like that, do it. Do it. It's very important. Internal linking will significantly improve the SEO. And if you don't know what structure to take, I'll present you an easy one, the pyramid structure, just starting with home. And then we have the categories, and then we have either subcategories or pages. Quite simple if you have categories and pages. If not, then your site is very small. You just have a flat structure. That's fine too. Talking about structure, URL structure is another important part here. And you should use short and descriptive URLs. That means removing stop words and, as I mentioned before, enforce trading slash or remove it. So either everything with a slash at the end or not. Also, if you use URLs, and I mean, you use URLs, place keywords inside. That's a nice way so people can type the keyword in the address bar and they figure it out. Plus, Google can infer also from that what the page is about. And as I mentioned before, avoiding query parameters might be a good idea, because you usually should not rely on that except your CMS forces you to. And using hyphens as delimiter is important. No underscores, no pipes, ads, whatever. Hyphens, dashes, that's the way. Another thing, non-www versus www, right? Decide for one version. Good. So let's transform a URL. Let's take abc.com/?id equals 129. Okay, that's a weird number. Not very nice. So first, remove the query parameter. And we have, say, static HTML for now. Good. But still not ideal. That ID is not very speaking, not very descriptive. So let's change that to a blog post about benefits of Nuxt. Better, but well, it's so long and there are underscores in there. Why? So let's make it a category. So we assume it's not just a blog on a page. We have a blog and maybe an app and stuff there. So we say /blog/now post about benefits of nuxt.html. Good. Now one more tiny thing to clean the bit up. Remove stop words. I left it off in here, but you can also remove that in theory, and we're good to go. Side note, removing HTML or PHP or whatever you have if you don't live in a Vue.js world at the end is not mandatory, so it won't increase ranking, but for me it's cleaner, so I like to do that. Okay, talking about trading slashes before, how to get consistent trading slashes with Nuxt. That's not too difficult. In Nuxt config.js, you can set router trading slash to true, and you're good to go. The only thing you have to care about now, and it's very important, you should set up redirects for all non-slash URLs, because otherwise they get a 404. Good thing is on Netlify, it should happen automatically. For other hosting providers, you might have to set up redirects. Okay, as Semantic HTML, use it. Please just use it for real. It's not that difficult. If you click on something and the page changes, it is an anchor tag or a nuxt link or router link. Not too difficult. If you click on something that's actionable and it's no link, it's a button. Nice. Also using nav, footer, main, section where applicable, all these HTML5 goodies, that's a good idea. And I could make a whole section about that. Use headings appropriately and in hierarchy. And please don't do something like that. A nuxt link tagged as div for whatever reason, not accessible at all. And on Click Native, you do something totally different. No, just don't do that. Also, alt text, important for accessibility, and not there to just stuff keywords. Please provide alt text and just describe what the image is showing. It's not too difficult. You can even AI generate it if you want to, but yeah, please do it. Okay. And now we have the last part, meta tags. Okay, so meta tags, mostly two parts: setting UDF8 charset and the initial viewport. That's just a standard thing. And finding the ideal title and meta description for each page. So I just marked it down here. That's mostly what you use to advertise for the people in the SERPs, the search and result pages. In the end, Google will decide what to show, but it's good to give a default option. So if Google says, well, that fits, it will take that. Testing is necessary, no doubt, switching it every now and then, but not every hour or day. And also using OG tags, for example, to improve link previews, what I mentioned early on. The effort there depends on the website size. So let's take a look into the first two because time is slowly running out. And the charset and viewport, just standard configs, very easy. You can set that in the nuxt.js or use the nuxt.js PWA module. If you use that, it's in there by default. You don't have to do anything. And it also comes with other nice SEO shortcuts. Going to the title. The title is usually in the format of keywords, so primary keyword, secondary keyword, brand name. It's not like Nike, Air Max, shoes, micro web shop. It's just to have roughly both in that, both of them in there, both keywords. And yeah, that's, for example, one of my blog posts, going Jamstack with Netlify Nuxt, pipe, blog.lichter.io, easy peasy. Suggested blank 50 to 60 characters. Why characters and why that range? Mostly because it's measured in pixel. You can use vue-meta's title template here to ensure that that brand name is always attached. So if there is a title set, it's title chunk here, render the chunk, and then render the pipe blog.lichter.io here. Otherwise, alternative, render default title. And then you can define the fragment or the chunk in the page components in here through the head function, and you're good to go. And then this one will be shown on the tab above. Okay, and the meta description, it's 155 to 160 characters long usually, so that's suggested, and it's your chance to advertise the content again. A good description where people are interested in, that will yield a high CTR, a high click-through rate. And this is important. Having a good ratio of, oh, they see the search result and they click on it is perfect, because that means that they're appealing and they're interested in what they're reading. It's difficult to do testing, but it's important. Also, you can define the description, the components, as I've shown here, with that meta array, then setting an HID, which is an ID if you want to override the description in child components, for example, the name of the tag, which is meta name description, and then the content. Cool. That's not everything, but these are the basics. I mean, we can also talk about hreflang, anchor text, structured data, local SEO, robots.txt, whatsoever, but there are lots of good guides on that here, and I'll just cut it here because there was already lots of info, I guess. So what to do? Of course, what to do after changing things, after implementing all these SEO improvements. Well, monitoring, monitor, and measure. And then if you tested something, measure it, see, oh, is it better now? If not, change it again. Also, you can resubmit changed or new pages through Google Search Console for quicker updates. That's important. And last but not least, be patient. SEO changes often take time. So sometimes even up to half a year until they really go back, but it's mostly for migrations. It should take days, not years. But it certainly will take days. So don't expect awesome results in, I don't know, 1 day or 2. Okay, short conclusion. SEO is no rocket science. Nice. Vue.js and SEO can be a love story. And please always monitor changes to catch mistakes, find chances to improve, and so on and so on. And the only two constants in SEO are, well, it's not a one-time thing. And as in web dev, things change quickly and often. Thanks a lot. You can find the slides there on that link, and you can shoot me questions over on Twitter and on live Q&A. Thank you.